All right, they did it. They did it. They fixed Warrior. Not really, but I do want to talk about the changes that they made in the Phase 5 of Alpha. So this is the fifth and final week. Most of the Warrior changes did come down to the arms getting a pretty hefty, I would imagine this is like slightly rework or a lot of like tuning design. But I do want to talk about the changes that affect protection specifically. So Barbaric Training and Crushing Force, now a 1-point talent. And they kind of reverted anger management back to a previous state where it affects multiple cooldowns and not just your main CD, mainly being like Avatar or Rec. The best thing about the Crushing Force and Barbaric Training choice, kind of reduction of point cost, is it's a lot easier to path into the bottom of your tree without having to spend 2 points, allowing you to actually get a lot of capstones. Basically before today, or before, I guess, this alpha build, you pretty much didn't have enough points to get more than 1 capstone, and anger management is just mostly objectively the best. And so they added things like Last Stand, Rework Champion Spear, and Battlefield Commander, but you couldn't really play them. But with this new kind of talent point structure and the reduction of these nodes, having this entire row be 1 point makes it so much easier to pick up things like Retaliation, to put more points into, Wild Strikes. You could even potentially get 3 of your 4 capstones, which is pretty good. So I like this change a lot. And the anger management change is also really good. Prot Warrior isn't really a class that has copious amounts of defensives, right? Outside of Ignore, Pain, and Shield Block, which is your active mitigation, your only way to actually significantly reduce damage is through Shield Wall. The whole gameplay loop of Warrior for forever has been cooldown reduction through anger management. Now, over the last previous weeks, what they've done is they've upped the energy or the rage cost up to 20 instead of 10. And they removed Shield Wall from it, so it was only giving you cooldown reduction on Avatar, which is already fairly lackluster. So now Shield Wall is back on the table when it comes to cooldown reduction. So when I do pop Shield Wall here and I charge in and I start spending rage, this cooldown is going to be reduced, which is just good. That is a big W. I have no haste on my gear, so it's gonna go down probably pretty slow. But if you look close enough, you can probably see that the little like yellow line that indicates its cooldown is getting reduced every time I'm spending rage. So big W, we like that. That is one of my biggest complaints that I've been vocal about Prot Warrior throughout the alpha cycle. Now, Prot also got some changes specific to their kind of capstone area. Both Avatar and Ravager have been updated. So Avatar not only increases your damage by 20%, but it also reduces all damage you take by 3%. For 20 seconds. I don't know if it still removes roots. It doesn't have that in the tooltip anymore. But basically, you get a flat 3% damage reduction when you're an Avatar. I don't mind this. I'm more than happy to take a 3% damage reduction. But doesn't that number seem odd? Like, why not 5%? Why not 10%? You know? Why not maybe 5% reduced physical damage or 10% reduced physical damage or something? To me, it just seems like again, happy that it's there, but why 3%, you know? Anyways, just a kind of a question, just a little thought. Anyways, Ravager has been updated. Additional effect, Revenge and Thunderclap deal 50% increased damage while Ravager is active. Ravager is now thrown at your target. That's fine change, that doesn't really matter. I know some people like to kind of throw it at a targeted location, especially if a mob is like maybe out of range or whatever, but most players also just play with at cursor or at player macros, or you're already playing Whirling Blade, which is spawning it on a nearby enemy, so this doesn't really matter. What I like about this change is it just makes Ravager more enticing to hit. The benefit of Ravager is that it generates rage, and it deals pretty good damage over its duration. While it's not uncapped AoE, it does have a soft cap at 8 targets. It does good damage. But now, inside of that cooldown, inside of Ravager windows, your Thunderclap and Revenge are just dealing more damage, which is awesome. Revenge has a little bit more damage modifiers from the Colossus tree specifically. You have things like Tide of Battle, you also have things like One Against Many that benefit Revenge. Things like Barbaric Training, also increasing Revenge's damage, makes Ravager feel good. On the other hand, Mountain Thane obviously has Thunderblast. So during a Avatar, maybe even a Ravager window, when you're, in this state, you're going to be dealing some pretty massive burst damage, which can be quite enticing for some players. So right there, we had pretty sizable Thunder Blast hits, if I can find it. They're hitting and critting for 17,000 on these targets after my Ravager is spawned. So that is, that's pretty big. That's obviously based on procs. You could play the true cooldown of Ravager to kind of have a little bit more agency. But what I like about the change is it just affects both trees equally. It's not one-sided like we see with sometimes where they're like, it's going to benefit, thrash damage. Well, that's going to benefit, Druid of the Claw a little bit more. It keg smash damage. Well, that's going to benefit Shado-pan a little bit more. But in this case, it's a nice change that affects both hero talents. The last thing I want to talk about is the tier sets, specifically the Protection Warrior one, obviously. So the 2-set bonus, Shield Slam damage increased by 10%, and Shield Charge damage increased by 100 P. That is a pretty sizable damage gain for Shield Charge, making it obviously more of a rotational button. As you can see here, Shield Charge hit for 10,000 damage as a crit, and it cleaved for an additional, 1,500, 1,600. 100% of this means that Shield Charge is going to feel very, very bursty. It's going to be hitting for give or take, at level 88, it's hitting for 10Ks, 20K crits, and cleaving additional targets. So Shield Charge is going to feel very bursty in AoE, and pretty sizable single target hit as well. It also really doesn't change our playstyle. You Shield Charge pretty much on cooldown anyways, for both Rage Economy and for damage. So having an increase on that is pretty good. The 4-set bonus causes Revenge and Thunderclap to deal 10% increased damage, and Shield Charge grants Revenge, meaning that your next Revenge cast with the proc is just going to deal bonus damage. So all in all, pretty good. It's going to be Shield Charge focused, but it's also just benefiting your regular kind of core kit, which is Thunderclap / Thunderblast or Shield Slam, which once again ties into both of the hero talents. Obviously with Colossus, there is an emphasis on Shield Slam crits, not necessarily the damage component, because that gives cooldown reduction on your Demolish. And then on Mountain Thane, you're getting Shield Slam resets and additional uses, which ends up just making it better. It also makes Thunderblast, you have to be hitting Shield Slam often enough to get Thunderblast procs. So all in all, having it just buff your core rotation is fine. Now, I will say it is kind of boring, but it is the first season. The first season generally has lackluster tier sets because they want you to focus on whatever is newly implemented. So in the case of season 1 in the War Within, it was your hero talents. In this season, it's probably going to be your Apex talents. So all in all, I think Warrior is in a much better state. I'm feeling a lot better about this version of the class going into beta than I was about it a week ago, where we couldn't get any of our capstones, we couldn't get cooldown reduction on Shield Wall, the talent point allocation in the left side, or I should say the class tree, was pretty lackluster. So this is good. I'm a big fan of these changes. Once beta comes out, Mythic Plus will be available to be tested, and hopefully I'm able to actually get gear that has better stats on it. The base gear gives me no haste, so it's a little difficult to test in its current states, and I don't feel like leveling to get gear that I'm going to just be able to craft in a couple weeks. So I'll be doing future videos about Warrior in the future. Holy shit, English. All right, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.